Hello, folks. It's Friday and it's almost the end of the month. 4th of July is just around the corner. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm kind of anxious to hear what Donald Trump might have to say come the 4th. There's a lot of anticipation. But anyway, right now, what we're going to talk about is review of what we did earlier this week. And then we're going to give you some teasers as to what's coming for the next several weeks. So Iran capitulates and peace and prosperity is what's on the table. That's what we talked about before. And what we're looking at is a geopolitical alignment to allow that to happen, an economic restoration that results as of that, and peace and prosperity as the Iran war ends, and I believe before the year is out, Ukraine-Russia war will also end. So let's go on down and let's get into this. So just as usual, here's what I'm saying to those of you who haven't already bought my book. The truth will set you free, and particularly for the young people who are worried about their future, the contents of this book will help you chart your course in a rapidly changing world. So click on that QR code. It'll take you to my website where you can buy the book. If you're not ready to buy the book, then you can get a free chapter to read to make some decisions as to what you think the value of the book really is. But it's 57 years worth of research. So let's go on down and we're going to review what we talked about earlier this week. And basically, what I'm trying to do for both what we did this week and what we're going to do for the next several weeks is make people less afraid, have them understand that this all has to happen and that it was all preordained by God and it was not to harm us, it was to help us. So he told us way, way, way back this war was going to happen and he was going to put a hook in Iran's mouth and they were not going to be able to continue to control the oil of the world. So when we come out of this, instead of them controlling 20% of the world's oil through the Strait of Hormuz, it's going to go down dramatically, maybe as little as 5% or more, because all of their neighbors are building alternative routes and logistics connections. So they basically played their trump card and it failed. Let's go on down to the next slide. So what these are the basically the headers that we talked about earlier in this week. And this one, I couldn't believe it, but there's a lot of people out there saying, is the world worse off now than under the nuclear agreement negotiated under Obama? No, folks, come on. Trump has taken away their capacity. All Obama, the Muslim Obama, who called the Quran the Holy Quran, and who said if there was ever any real conflict between the United States and the Muslim nations, he'd side with the Muslims. That agreement had a fatal error in it, and that was that they had the provisions to inspect the nuclear sites, but they gave them weeks notification. It might as well not even have an agreement if it's going to allow them to keep from you the vital information you need in order to determine if they're compliant. So no, we're far better off with what Trump is doing. The whole world is better off. Let's go down to the next slide. And what we're going to do is ask another one of the questions that we talked about. Who do the Iranian people see as their primary enemy? Is it Israel? Is it the U.S. or is it perhaps Iraq, and why? Well, it's basically the IRGC, because basically the angst that created the Iranian Republic in the first place and the IRGC happened 73 years ago. And so most of the people that are there today, they don't remember that. They don't carry that hatred in their hearts. And part of proof of that is who are they calling for? They're calling for the Ayatollahs to step down, and they're calling for the son of the Shah of Iran to come back and to help them get their nation back in order. So why do they hate the IRGC? Because every time they have a protest over fuel costs or food costs or water costs or are making women wear burqas and so forth and so on, the IRGC comes in and they put it down. And if they have to kill people, they kill them. If they find who the people who orchestrated the protest, they hang them. So how could you not hate somebody that keeps you in that kind of suppression and keeps the whole world against your nation so that you live in a constant state of financial want and distress? I mean, come on. The enemy, according to the people themselves, is the IRGC, not Israel, not the United States of America. Let's go on down. And this is where God comes in. His hand is always there. He told us in the very beginning, he put a hook in Iran's mouth, and here's that hook. That hook happens to be water. You can't function without water. It is the absolutely quintessential of all the things in the world. And they have foolishly allowed all their aquifers to go dry while all of their Muslim neighbors were busy building desalination plants, because remember, it's a desert. So they've got water. But Iran didn't do that. They built missiles, and they developed nuclear capabilities, and they built ships and so on and so forth. And they let the water crisis get to the point that they're even talking about maybe the capital has to be moved because there's literally no water. So they're in a siege and they have no water. So the only outcomes are either you capitulate and surrender, or you starve to death. And I can tell you this, that what's happened now is with the lack of water and the crisis that's happening economically, the people are in absolute revolt against the regime, and they simply don't have enough people to keep the people in suppression. So let's go on now, because basically they fear starvation more than they fear the IRGC. So the next question is, what do the Abraham Accords have to do with Iran's future outlook? Bottom line is that America under Donald Trump has orchestrated the Abraham Agreement, and most of the Arab nations have signed up. And so they're viewing Iran as more of an enemy than the little Satan and the big Satan. And that forebodes unbelievably positive things for the hope of peace in the Middle East. And peace in the Middle East brings peace for the whole world. Trump's already negotiated 8 peace agreements. And I know this one looks a little shaky, but there's no alternative. It's going to happen. It's going to be just the way God said. And then we've really only got one left, and that's Iran. And that's Ukraine and Russia. And I think both of them are having fatigue. So I think that's going to end before the year is over. I'm not a clairvoyant, I'm not a prophet, but all the indicators are that war is heading to an end. Let's go on to the next slide. And what is it that we should be looking on here? We should be looking at the red. The red are all the sea gates. How you control the world and have for decades is by controlling all the sea gates. So Trump had to come in and had to control the Greenland, because as the ice caps melt, that's going to be a very crucial sea route over to Europe and Asia. And then we had literally lost control of the Panama Canal with seaports on both sides of the canal controlled by China. That's no more. So if you look at us, though, we're in a pretty favorable position because we're over 3,000 miles away from Europe and Africa and Asia and all of that. And we're got oceans on 3 sides. So basically, we have pretty much free access. But if you look at the rest of the world, they're all crammed in, and they're all susceptible to blockages of trade. So you got Gibraltar, you've got the Suez Canal, you got the one that's in the news right now every day, the Strait of Hormuz, and you got the Strait of Malacca. And any one of those is a choke point. If they shut it down, they can control the oil, they can control commerce. And so basically, we need to get peace, and we need to get all of those choke points freed up, so that basically there can be commerce that flows without all the problems that we have. And one of the big problems that we face economically is when they cause these wars and these flare-ups, basically that creates an added cost on everything that you get, whether it's oil, anything that's shipped, because it's a risk factor, and the insurance prices go up through the roof. That's all going to change as we get out of this war. So let's go on down. And what are we looking at? We're looking at this leading to a financial reset. And what's that financial reset? It basically brings stability to the entire world. The dong and the dinar are probably going to revalue. And when they do, they've met all the requirements. I'm not going to read this to show that they are stable economies. So why haven't they reset? Because the biggest thing blocking is political. And what's happening in Iraq has now got their own government. And what's happening in Vietnam is looking like China would maybe rather negotiate a financial agreement with the United States rather than get into a war. So I see the outlook for peace on the whole world is very, very likely. And I see the financial outcome as we get out from under the fiat system and we go to a system that's fair and equitable, and all nations have their currencies revalued at relative parity. So let's go on down. And what we really are talking about here is that knowledge is power. And that's what I try to give you in this book. And this book will help you chart your course in a rapidly changing world. But what it'll also do is it'll take away the fear so that you're not living constantly upset and nervous because everything is going to stabilize. So now let's go on down. That finishes what we talked about this week. So where are we going to go in the next few weeks? I have 7 shows queued up. The first one is on Sarah and Gassan, and that basically is the financial reset that's been trying to happen ever since Kennedy, actually even before. Let's go on down, and I'm just going to read for those who may not know. I'm going to read you the definition. So Nasara is for the United States, and Jasara, same thing. It's just global, but here's your definition. It's a program promising sweeping economic reforms intended to transfer monetary control from where? From the Federal Reserve banking system, the fiat system, to the U.S. Treasury, so sovereign governments around the world can have freedom and peace and prosperity. It is intended to replace the fiat dollar with a sovereign commodity-backed currency and make financial restoration possible around the world. So that's where we're going. That's a huge show. I break down the sorrow down in levels of detail that I've never seen anybody else do. I not only tell you what it is supposed to contain from a structure viewpoint, but I basically go into the history of it, and I go into how it's implemented. So that's what we're going to be talking about in the coming week or two. And then let's go on down the next show that we'll be doing. So this is a whole series. I'm saying the world is changing. The financial situation is changing, and people need to know what's coming, because this is an absolute fact. Whenever there's a financial collapse, and we have to have one, folks, we have to take control away from the global financial elite. As they say, who controls money controls the world. So because the global financial elite have controlled the banking system of the world, we haven't had a sovereign nation in the world for decades and decades and decades, maybe for the entire duration of the United States of America, its entire 250-year history. But all of that's about to change. We've got to get out from under the fiat system and go back to the treasury and go back to currency that's based on gold and silver and on a whole basket of commodities. Now, the next thing we're going to be talking about under that particular show is go back in history and basically let people understand what bred the swamp that we have and how it controls us. I'm going to read this bottom part. This is by President Wilson after he initiated the birth of the Federal Reserve System in 1913, when he called for the vote on Christmas, when he knew most everybody would be gone. And so it was from the very beginning an act of treachery. It says our great industrial nation is controlled by its system of what? Credit. We have become one of the worst ruled, one of the most completely controlled and dominated governments in the civilized world. And going back even further, we go back to Joseph Stamp, who was the head of the Bank of England, and what he said is, if you want to remain slaves, then basically continue to allow the banking system, particularly the British banking system, to control the issuance of currency, worthless fiat currency. So let's go on down, and the next show we're going to be talking about is how you navigate the coming reset. So here's something that most people don't realize. In a financial crisis, one of two things happen. Either you lose markedly, maybe you lose everything you have, but if you understand what's coming and you understand how it's going to unfold and you understand where to put your assets, then a financial reset results in some of the greatest transfers of wealth that have ever happened under any situation. So you have a lot to learn here, but if you put your money in the right place, you make the right decisions, you don't need to fear this collapse. You will basically profit from it. So I'm going to be breaking that down. That's going to be a pretty detailed show. So that's coming up as an individual show as well. And here's a little bit of what you can expect from it. Don't fear the financial collapse. Take advantage of it. That's the message of this particular show. Trump is orchestrating a U.S. financial collapse in order to trigger a reset that takes us out from under the fiat system and puts us into a system that's commodity backed, where we can have sovereignty. And so what you're going to get in this presentation is an understanding of what to do in a crash. Preparation is the antidote for fear. Debt is a trap during a crash. So you don't want to go into this in debt if you can keep from it. Diversify. Get out of dollar denominated assets, and we'll be telling you the things to put your money in. Avoid leverage, because if you're leveraged, then that means you're going to have to sell things at the most inopportune time possible, and that you want to be in a position that as others sell, you can buy. So we're going to go into detail as to how you orchestrate that sort of circumstances in your life so that you can benefit rather than being harmed by this financial collapse. Let's go on down, and we're going to have the currency reset. That's the next show. So each one of these headers is basically a show. And what we're going to find here is what the outcome is after the reset. We're going to get out from globalization, and we're going to go to deglobalization. We're going to get out from under the fiat currency and go to commodity-backed currency. And those things are going to take away the control of the global financial elite. So we're going to have basically financial freedom. We're going to have a decentralized economy. We're going to have privacy because we're going to be on blockchain. We're going to have transparency because of blockchain. We're going to have technology that can help us in a lot of ways. And all of this is stemming from being on blockchain. And we're going to have events, be able to prevent election tampering, because again, it all comes down to blockchain, quantum financials, and technology that's being implemented. And transactions are digitized, fractionalized, and settled in 3 to 6 seconds. That takes away control of the system, where they basically hold your money for 3, 4, 5 days, making interest on trillions of dollars and passing the whole chain of transfer of money from middleman to middleman to middleman. All that changes. Quick, fast, efficient, cheap. That's what we're going to have. And they're not going to be able to control it. Let's go on down. And this is something that's been in the news for quite a while now, and that is the silver squeeze. How is it that they have suppressed silver for the entirety of my life? And is there a set of circumstances that's going to make it impossible for them to do that going forward? And there is, and it has to do with something that's on this next slide. It's the Defense Production Act, where basically silver is no longer going to be able to be controlled, because they want to hold it down and hold gold down so that they can keep their fiat currency as the principal mechanism for economic transactions. Nope, we're going to find out that silver is probably the most vital commodity in the world as far as manufacturing and high tech is concerned. And that's going to drive the price of silver up, because we have a shortage, and we're going to need to open mines up. And to do that, we're going to have to raise the price of the silver. So it's coming. It cannot be stopped. We're headed into the largest technological revolution the world has ever seen, and it's going to demand silver. And that means they're not going to be able to suppress the price. Let's go down to the next show. And this one, my heart bleeds for the young people. I had a conversation with my son the other day, and we were talking about how much he makes. And it sounds like he has a good salary. But he said, but Dad, it's not like when I was growing up, when you were working, things didn't cost what they cost now. You have to have double what you made in order to get by today. So they're creating a situation. In this particular show, what we're going to be talking about is how Schwab says you will own nothing and be happy. No, there are ways that can be reversed. So they've trapped you guys, you millennials and your Generation Zs, in every way possible. They send you to college and give you an education that is intentionally designed not to give you the kind of income that you need. And they brainwash you at the same time so they can turn out as many communists as they can. And then when you get out of school and can't get the job, maybe you've got a degree and now you're working as a waiter or a waitress, and won't let you out of that school loan. They basically changed the rules so that even if you declare bankruptcy, you can't get enough money in that school loan. And when you get ready to go to buy a house, they've got it fixed so that you can't buy one, because they're creating a housing shortage, because they're building almost all the new homes as rent to own only. We're going to break all that down. I spent 12 years in the real estate market, and I have a lot of things that I can share with you. So what they're trying to do is to provide billions of dollars, billions, to build new construction, but only for rent. So there are ways we can get around that. And the last show in that series is going to be talking about something that has to happen. We have to have an honest government. We have to have go to the next slide, if you would. We have to have control of our economic system. We have to stop the stealing of the votes, because if you have people who are put in by the global financial elite that are dedicated to collapsing America, then the laws that they pass are not passed to benefit you and me. They're laws that are passed to benefit the global financial elite and to create, over time, a legal dictatorship. And they facilitate money laundering, they facilitate election theft, they facilitate corruption at all different levels. All of that is just about to be released. And when it does, it's going to open people's eyes, and we're going to stand up, and we're going to get a United States of America back. And it's going to happen, by the way, around the world. And so the Bible says that a nation divided cannot stand. So they have gone to every possible extent that they could to see to it that we were brainwashed and that we were divided. But guess what? With the technology that we have, thanks to Elon Musk, with the people that God has placed in certain positions, we have it all. And it's all going to come out in the next few months. And when that happens, the ability of the global financial elite to suppress us is going to be just obliterated. Soon the truth about the present pattern of election theft will be revealed. The swamp will be drained, and peace and prosperity will come. Let's go to the last slide. And again, I encourage you to buy this book. I'd like to see people not be afraid. I'd like to see them be informed. I'd like to see them be able to take advantage of this financial collapse and actually become wealthy as a result of it and not lose everything they have. Everything you need to know as to how to chart your course in this coming very volatile time is in this book. It's based on 57 years of research. So I encourage you to buy it. I encourage you to read it. I encourage you to share what you've learned with others. It's because we need an army. We need a situation like what's happened in Iran, where now the people are in such mass that there are so many that the IRGC has lost the ability to control them. We need that kind of momentum here in the United States. We need people's eyes to open, and we need people to stand up. And when they do, we'll realize we are many, they are few. And the momentum of this nation will turn. The LGBT movement is beginning to reverse, and patriotism is beginning to reemerge, and family and Christian values is beginning to reemerge. Thank you, Donald Trump. Thank you, God. God has this all orchestrated, and all he needs is for you guys to open your eyes, to pay attention, to surrender to God, and stand for family, for Christian values, for faith, for morality, and to learn and to understand that we are the guardians of our neighbors, that we all share this nation and this world together. And instead of fighting one another, we need to live together in peace and harmony. And that is going to be possible with all the disclosures that are coming out. So with that, I will see you next week. And everybody, I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I hope you have a wonderful forthcoming 4th of July. Be blessed.